Yeah, I don't think this is gonna last the entire hour. I mean, if people have questions, I want you to feel free to just interrupt, turn your mute off and interrupt or raise your hand or put in a chat. I won't see the chats right away, but make it a discussion if you want. It's pretty clear cut. These are reminders. You've had this orientation, you had reminders of this when you were in pre-licensing, but it's something that we have to keep in our minds all the time because it's so easy to have some unbiased, unintentional bias and things that you have to be aware of. So that's why we're having the reminders as well as the code of ethics last week that Steph did. I'm going to do fair housing reminders this week. Okay, I will get started. Let me see if I can get this down. It starts with the Federal and State Fair Housing Act. So that is the law. It is so it is unlawful to make, print, or publish any notice, statement, or advertisement. Now that covers quite a bit. Make, print, publish any notice, statement, or advertisement with respect to the sale of a rental of a dwelling, sale or rental of a dwelling that indicates preference. That means wanting some group limitation, that is eliminating some group, or discrimination based on the following protected classes. So it is a preference for, that is discriminating, or a limitation of, that is discriminating. Based on the following protected classes. Now, these are the classes that we are going to be protecting.
Joan, I think I have to stop you for a second. I don't see that the slides are moving forward. Are you guys
No,
seeing?
they're not. That's what I'm having trouble with too. If
Interesting.
share.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Okay, let me see if it goes ahead. No,
Huh.
I'm gonna have to manually. That's weird. Excuse me a minute. I'm just gonna go back and see what's. Okay. All right, I might have to manually switch to each one. All right, these are the protected classes, and generally we talk about the federal classes that are protected. This is across the entire United States, and it is under the Fair Housing Act. So it is a law to protect the following classes of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, natural origin. Wisconsin, the state of Wisconsin has also added sexual orientation is a protected class. Marital status is a protected class. Lawful source of income, age, and ancestry. Now, these are things that I want you to just make sure that you are always aware of, the federal classes and the Wisconsin classes. There are actually a few Milwaukee classes too, which I don't have in here. No, and now I'm totally dinged up.
And this is Justin. I have a question about
Of course.
the third bullet. Like, what is the exact definition of a lawful source of income?
That means that, let me think of an example. If somebody, say is getting their income from
Mm,
gambling or so,
mm,
that is an unlawful source of income.
mm.
they're doing it illegally.
Mhm.
Oh, that's not a good example. Getting someone who actually earns an income that is not illegal is a better
Got it.
saying it.
Got it. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Now, Steph, are you there?
I'm
Oh,
here. I'm just
got
answering
it.
a question. I'm so
Oh,
sorry. So,
it did go, so.
um, I'm so sorry, you guys. Okay. I didn't hear Justin's question. Is that
His question was, what is a lawful source of income? And I said that as long as the income that they are having is legal, then that is a lawful source of income. If you're getting money from things that are illegal, that you are not a protected class.
yeah, I
Do you?
guess this just fall under, yeah, like if you're being paid under the table or something.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Or for, doing drugs or
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the main force in the uh, whole thing of fair housing, it started back quite a few years ago when there was blatant steering with real estate uh, agents and uh, loan officers and other participants in the real estate transfer were caught steering. And so what I wanted to point out is that sometimes you can be steering and not aware that you're steering. But it is illegal to steer in any source, and it is also unethical. It is a paragraph in our code of ethics about uh, prohibiting steering. So I wanted to actually define what steering is. It occurs when a real estate sales or rental agents, so this applies to rent as well as sale, encourage or steer prospective homebuyers or renters to communities that have high concentration of owners and renters of the same race or ethnic group. The biggest challenge when composing housing ads is not necessarily avoiding overt discrimination, but rather detecting and avoiding subtle discrimination, which may appear harmless on the surface, yet resonate as exclusionary to some communities or ethnic groups. The same is true with steering when subtle comments may appear harmless or well-intentioned advice on the surface, but are actually stripping a person of the right and the ability to direct the housing search and exercise free choice as to this desired housing setting. While some agents once openly shut out Blacks out of white neighborhoods, now some apply courteous professionalism as they subtly sort buyers by race or ethnicity. And that is more what is happening now. It very rarely do we see overt shutting out of Blacks out of white neighborhoods or different racial elements out of another racial neighborhood. But the subtlety of doing it and talking about schools or talking about parks and neighborhoods that is really overriding a very subtle way of steering. This school is better than that school for your child, kind of comments. So providing information resources. If you can't talk about different personalities of different neighborhoods and makeup, and you do have, excuse me, a way to get information to your buyer if they have questions. So complying with federal fair housing laws does not prevent licensees from being a reliable and rich source of information and alternatives for clients. If a buyer wants to know the crime statistics of an area, smart sales associates direct them to the police department or other sources of information. They never disclose crime statistics or say a neighborhood is safe even if they believe it to be true. Licensees may be asked about ethnic, racial, or religious makeup of a neighborhood. Develop a list of all the churches in various neighborhoods and provide that as a resource regarding religion to buyers. If a buyer needs to know about the demographics of an area, refer them to the Census Bureau at www.factfindercensus.gov. Clients can find actual racial and ethnic breakdowns by city. City governments or nonprofits may be able to provide data. So the information is out there, and a lot of buyers, especially if they're new to Milwaukee, new to the community, do have questions about crime or racial discrimination components that we absolutely cannot talk about. We cannot give our opinion in any way, shape, or form. But you can direct them to places that have that information, and they can do all the searching that they want. So we are there to help our buyers, but not provide information that could be considered steering or discrimination. Any questions about this?
I think we lost her share again. Or not again, but
I don't know what's going on.
that poor computer.
Yeah, it's new too. So what we have here is the buyers will have questions. Are you seeing how to respond to buyers' questions?
Or not.
You're not seeing that slide?
Mm-mm. Do you wanna share the presentation with me and I can share it from over here?
Well, I did send it to you
Oh, you
yesterday.
did. Oh, I didn't.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I can see how to respond to buyers'
Oh,
questions.
you can?
You do?
Hmm.
Okay, maybe I can't. Okay, maybe it's just me. So
Maybe
sorry.
it's your computer.
It's my
Okay, so I'll go back to that. Uh, All right, how to respond to buyers' question. Again, this is a continuation of resources that you have. Avoid characterizing neighborhoods and residential districts or school districts by ethnicity or religious or racial composition. Schools, talking about schools or residential districts is a subtle way of discriminating and steering. So make sure that you avoid that characterizing. Instead, provide them with resources such as the US Census covers. And here's a link for that. These slides will be kept on YouTube, so you can go to them and then you can connect that link. Or as they say, direct them to community websites or local police departments. So now do you have American Disabilities Act?
It was me.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
A real estate, and this is something that a lot of people don't talk about or realize. They think when they hear fair housing, they think of racial discrimination, basically. But it also talks about the American Disabilities Act, which, like the Fair Housing Act, was a law passed nationally. And it is something that is illegal and unethical to own up to our responsibilities. So under the American Disabilities Act, real estate agents have the responsibility to show reasonable modifications for a client or a customer to assist in showings, understandings, communications, and all important real estate services. And actually, if you totaled up the amount of fair housing violations, most of them come from violations against the American Disabilities Act and not against racial steering. as an agent, and a lot of it is because agents don't realize that they have that responsibility to show reasonable modifications. That means if you have a client who has trouble talking on the telephone, there are many adaptations or modifications that can be made to overcome that. You are responsible for helping the client get those modifications and install them so that they do help. As far as in showings, if they have trouble getting around or getting transportation, you have the responsibility to show reasonable modifications in maybe getting a chair, wheelchair rented, or different modifications to help somebody who has trouble with mobility to be able to get into a house and be able to see it. So obviously you can imagine there are a lot of these. It is something where you get to know your client, talk to your client, what modifications do they have or do they need? And you together can find out what is going to help them be able to see properties in showings, be able to understand and communicate. If they don't have the ability to use the internet or computers, you have to make up the modifications for them to be able to communicate. Any questions on the American Disabilities Act? It is far ranging, wide scope. No questions? So a lot of this, as I said, more people obviously are aware. There's this, we've made a lot of progress in fair housing over the years, but there's still some people who don't realize that they have a bias in one way or another. They think they're being fair, they think they're being open, and even if they have a sort of a buried prejudice, they think they're doing very well to overcome it when selling real estate. But there is a lot of unconscious bias in real estate, and that's what we want to open the doors, make sure that we all are aware of this and see it. One of the biggest eye openers is the Fairhaven test. You go to fairhaven.realtor and you can start the Fairhaven test. It takes a little time. You need your NERDS number and your NAR login to get into the test. And it takes you through different scenarios and how you would react as a buyer or as an agent. You will see things from the seller's point of view and, as I said, from the buyer's point of view too, and learn how the characteristics of different neighborhoods and properties available in this fictional community. Fairhaven invites you to open your mind and put on your thinking cap. It's actually kind of interesting to take this test, and you'll learn a lot about yourself when you do. Okay, so take the time in January to do the Fairhaven test. Now, these are six steps that the WRA has lined out to keep a property searched unbiased. So if you keep these 6 steps in mind, you will never be in a situation where you have unconscious bias or unawareness. It will keep you aware and keep you treating every single person the same way. Every single situation the same way. You will always have a system to give you guidance on how you treat every, and I mean every single buyer, client, or customer in this uniform, consistent, and objective way. That's step 1. Step 2 is use the system procedures to qualify buyers and match them to properties. Always use the same system to qualify buyers and match them to their properties. Have a standard list of questions for all buyers, i.e. price, financial qualification, neighborhood amenities, distance from work, etc. make sure that you have this system in writing, so you make sure that you are always being consistent, uniform, and objective. Step 3, provide buyers with information about a variety of properties and neighborhoods and let them decide where to live. Especially, as I said, if somebody's moving into Milwaukee for the first time and they don't know anything, north, south, east, or west, you have that responsibility to educate them, but educate all buyers, whether they are native Milwaukeeans or new to Milwaukee, with the same information, with the same system, about giving them all the choices, listening to what they want, and then giving them all the choices so they can decide which area, which neighborhood, which block, which house to buy. Avoid giving personal opinions about a community, area, schools. Instead, guide buyers to third-party sources regarding school ratings, crime statistics, demographics. Only obtain and provide objective information. And I love this step number 5. Fair housing is about choice, and that we're talking about the buyer's choice. Step number 6, always document the services that you provided. That should be done in every single buyer that you take out, especially. You should always document the service that you provided. The backup of what you are doing, that it is consistent, that you always ask these same questions, you always qualify buyers in this exact same way, will help you not only become professional, but keep you from unconscious bias or steering. So that's pretty much what I have as a reminders for fair housing. There are lots and lots and lots of information. There is a legal update that was done in 2023. The whole legal update is about fair housing. All these resources you can get through the WRA.org and just search fair housing. So if you ever have a question about an advertisement or the wording you should use or how you should respond to a buyer questions, you can go to all this information that's available to you. You can always call us at compliance and ask us our opinion on it. But I think if you keep these 6 steps in the back of your mind as being consistent, it will save you. In my personal experience as an agent and as a manager for many years, I've seen all kinds of situations pop up. And one situation that I had when I was an agent, I was going on a listing presentation, a couple that I knew the wife a little bit, but not very much. And it was a nice house, sort of a 1960s large, nice house. And so they asked me to come over to do a listing presentation, and I did, went through the whole thing. And I told them what I thought the price range should be. And the wife said that she wanted it higher. And I started sort of reversed back and showing her the comps again, and didn't think that it would support a higher price range. And she said, no, I want it high to keep the unpleasants out of the neighborhood. My neighbors would never forgive me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. And I just stood up and I said, I'm sorry, as a real estate agent in the state of Wisconsin, I can't have this discussion. And I left. And she never talked to me again, and I never talked to her again. But it's amazing. It's out there, and it's something that we as real estate agents have to keep our professionalism to help everybody else that we can. Any questions? It's about 12:30, so we do have some time if you have any discussion or questions about any of these things.